Welcome to Living a Full Life podcast. Join us as we explore health topics that encourage raising healthy children, living a healthy life, and living the best life possible. Now, here's your host.
Hey everyone, welcome to another podcast of Living a Full Life. A really awesome guest this week, Zach from Nava Health. Thanks for being here, my man.
No, thanks for having me.
Yeah, we had a great one podcast on yours, which was really great. I was like, man, we got to do one for Living a Full Life because people need to hear you, your story, how you got into this, and why you continue to deal with this. I'm sure it's the same reasons I do too, but let's get into some hard knock health stuff and where the trends are going and what true health really means. So tell the listeners where you're from, and I'll stay quiet.
Yeah, so Chief Operating Officer at Nava Health. We're a functional longevity medicine practice that's utilizing, data-driven, personalized medicine to root cause healing. It's very different than traditional care, right? We go really in depth. We spend a lot of time with clients to truly get to know them, get to know their lifestyle, get to know, the ins and outs and the inner workings of what's working for them and what's not. Like you can't do that in your average 7 to 10 minute traditional visit, right? You might be able to ask, hey, how things going and how's the family? And then, doctor's out, right? We're spending, on average 30 to 60 minutes with clients, doing really advanced diagnostic testing to truly get a full understanding of everything that's going on, right? We should be treating the body as not individual systems, right? We should truly be treating everything as a whole, right? Because it all has inner workings with each other, right? To be proactive and be preventative, which is the future of medicine, right? It's not reactive medicine, the way that the traditional model is set up today. It's the future is being proactive and being preventative, because we know of the chronic diseases that are plaguing our nation can be prevented, right? So we take that root cause, data-driven, personalized approach, right? Everyone should be treated as a one of one, right? There is nobody that is like you on a biological level. No one has the same body size, shape, just everything, right? There is no one size fits all model, right? But the traditional medicine treats you that way, right? It's a cookie cutter system. They get you into that hamster wheel to where you're just constantly being churned and burned, through the traditional model with big pharma, whatever it might be. But we've really, just like the food pyramid was flipped, right? We've flipped the script on how medicine is practiced to really be, individualized treatment plans, not that cookie cutter protocol. So that's a little bit about Nava and what we do. It's really, taking the offense instead of the defense, and helping people, not just with chronic issues and diseases that they might be dealing with right now, but the people who do want to be proactive and want to be preventative, to set themselves up for success, right? It's not just about living longer, right? But it's about living longer with a quality life. And that's, what we set up and what we do every day.
Love it. Yeah. Quality, not quantity. That's what it's all about. And forging forward, providers like you, providers like us, it's real healthcare. And I think that's what drives our passion to keep doing it and dealing with all the chaos that comes with healthcare in America these days, and why we keep forging through it. It's not profitable. It's not 100%. It is rewarding because your patients truly live healthier for sure. But it's a grudge to, it's a grind to get through with what real health is. And I think that's why the medical model is so easy. It's turn and burn. It's the exact same thing, exact same labs. I mean, your blood pressure is high. Well, is it? I mean, my descendants come from this part of the world. Is that really high? I don't know. So they don't look at these things. And I love what you guys are doing out there too with Nava and the thing that you're building. But more importantly, what got you into this? I always love the backstory. What pushed you to do this? And I usually find that whatever it was, it's why you still do it today.
Yeah, no, of course. Nava wasn't created just because, we thought, oh, this is an awesome idea. Let's go out there and create this company as an opportunity to just make a boatload of money. It started about 15 years ago because my mom got sick. She was struggling and was being bounced around from doctor to doctor and being told that everything looked normal. Why she didn't feel normal, where, she was bedridden, she was stuck in bed, she was constantly just in excruciating pain. And, we lived up in Maryland. So obviously we're surrounded by some of the most prestigious hospital systems in the world, right? I mean, if there's one place to be, that people fly all over the world from, is to Maryland, because you got John Hopkins, you got UMD, you got these just massive, well reputable hospital systems where, they have the best specialists, right? So we had access to what are considered the best specialists in the world. Yet they couldn't figure it out. They got it wrong. And that experience just exposed us to how broken, this reactive healthcare model really is. That people, talk about all the time, how this system is failing, or it is broken. But I like to kind of remind people that it's actually not broken, or it's not failing, right? It is set up exactly to get the results that it gets, right? You don't get that big of a conglomerate corporation, whether it's big pharma, big insurance companies, just this traditional model, by doing something that is broken, right? Their profits grow every year, right? They make more money every single year. It's so that system is set up to drive and get the results that it gets today. And it is considered a successful business. Now, is it successful for us as consumers, as the ones whose health is on the line? No. I mean, that's where it is failing. That's where it is broken, in terms of the outcomes that we get from it. But in terms of the system that they get and the outcomes that they get, it's not broken, and it's not failing. It's thriving. And I think that's what people are really starting to wake up to, especially after COVID. That was a big tipping point for a lot of people. You've known for a lot longer since COVID. Obviously, we've known prior to that. So, it started because my mom got sick and couldn't figure out. And finally, we found a functional medicine provider who took the time, right, to get to truly understand what was going on, did advanced testing, right, took the route that we take of Nava, of testing and not guessing, right? Like, I don't understand how a doctor can confidently sit there and get your medical history, get your symptoms, and prescribe a medication just based off of what someone might be feeling, right? Because, your pain reason is completely different what I consider pain, right? But to still write a narcotic and a painkiller for pains that could be, completely different, because everyone has different perspectives, without truly knowing the root cause of that, to me, it's just bad medicine, right? You're just guessing, right? And that's kind of what really turned things around for us, where, when my mom found this functional medicine doctor, took the time, did advanced diagnostics, put together a personalized plan based off of her, what the labs showed, what her symptoms showed, what her medical history looked like, her lifestyle, and, wasn't going for that Band-Aid to put over a symptom, right? Wasn't writing prescriptions, right? Changed her diet, changed the supplements that she was on, really started focusing on optimizing what she was deficient in. Her hormones were tanked. So, focused on, utilizing bioidentical hormone therapy, optimized her thyroid, did IV therapy, and slowly but surely she started getting better and better and better. And that's kind of like where this light bulb went off. Like, why isn't this everywhere, right? Why isn't this the first line of defense? Because essentially that is what saved my mom. Functional medicine is what saved my mom. A doctor who was willing to take the time, go against what, the medical school systems are teaching, what, the insurance companies are telling them to do, what big pharma says to do, and, really treated her as a unique individual, look at diagnostics, so that the recommendations that she was making and that he was making, because there was two of them, was a holistic, personalized approach to what she needed specifically. And she's still here today, 15 years later. She's not bedridden. She has that energy. She's able to watch my three kids, and who are just a ball of energy. And so, that's kind of where that light bulb, right? And my dad had this great idea of, wanting to go out there and, you know, help people like my mom. He didn't want, the system to fail others like they failed my mom, right? To be a place where people can truly come and get answers and find a place that is going to look at truly what's going on, right? We're not here for a quick fix. There is no magic pill, right? For anyone who thinks there's a magic pill, right, you have to get rid of that mindset, because it's completely backwards. It takes work to get healthy, like to stay healthy, to be healthy. It takes work. It's going to be hard, but what else is hard? Being sick, right? Dealing with the impact that it has on not only just the individual that's sick, but the people around her. It played a toll on all of us. And so, we really, really wanted to go out there and create something that we could grow and scale to really help, as many people as possible. Because what we saw happen with my mom was just something that, it would have been selfish of us not to try to go out there and do this to help others. And so that's really where it started, and where we're at today, 12 years later. And we've, seen and helped over 60,000 clients and counting.
Wow. Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, me too. My dad, similar story. And then looking outside the box, how much better he did and how much quicker he did. He may not be here today if he didn't. So yeah, and that's what we strive to move forward. But there's a lot of restrictions now, both for the consumer, the patient, and the doctor, to administer proper healthcare. And if you want to go back a couple of weeks, I had a medical doctor on my podcast. She's a great lady. She was talking about lifestyle medicine. I was like, what is this? She's like, it's actually a board certification, just like internal medicine, pediatrics, and everything else. And I looked it up, and she's absolutely right. And it opened up in 2018 in America, the American Board of Lifestyle Medicine. So you can be board certified as an MD, and we get through it. I'm like, well, what is it? And she's like, it's lifestyle, diet. I'm like, wow. You guys are 200 years late to the game, to the table, but we're so happy you're here. I'm excited for you. Welcome to the right side of healthcare. And she kind of just looked at me. She's like, yeah, I guess I'm excited to be here. I just turned the whole table on her. I'm like, it's great that you have this whole program. Functional medicine has been around from the beginning, and there's providers out there that have been building clinics around this around the world. In Tijuana, in Canada, in Vancouver, like on the borders, in Puerto Rico, on the border of the United States, because of the conglomerates in the United States blocking this stuff. From cancer healing to regeneration, all these things, people have to go overseas, away from the greatest country in the world, to go get great healthcare, which makes no sense. So let's talk about the bureaucracy a little bit, what's holding people back. And I think 2026 is wonderful for this, because my patients in my office are dropping healthcare. They're dropping Cigna, they're dropping Aetna, they're dropping Blue Cross. They're dropping because of the costs. I mean, they were paying, $18,000 last year. They're getting quoted $29K for 2026. Like, this is a significant 40, 50, 60% increase in premiums. And people are like, well, hang on a second. My family and I don't spend that much money on our health. And if we did, we'd probably be a lot healthier. So they're getting it. And it's amazing for the people to be saying it and not me, because they think I have something to sell when I say that. So I'm just sitting with my arms crossed. I'm like, this is wonderful. Where do you see it's going? What is holding us back from true healthcare?
Yeah, I mean, it is the bureaucracy, right? Unfortunately, I mean, the system is so massive to have such a quick shift overnight to, our viewpoints of what medicine should be, right? Being proactive, being preventative, taking the offensive side of being healthier, before, not waiting until you get sick. You got to think, right? There's massive $1 billion-trillion companies, right, that are at the forefront, that are controlling, the medical school systems, what's being taught. And if, they're taking these, fresh out of college students going into medical school and basically teaching them all that they know, right? Saying, this is how to practice medicine. This is the standard of care. right? If you don't, if you're not following the standard of care, guess what's going to happen? We're going to take your license, right? So not only are they dictating what's being taught, but now they're scaring, the providers of this is how you have to do it, or you're going to lose your livelihood, right? So there's that piece, the medical school systems, who's controlling and dictating the education that's happening there, right? You just talked about, lifestyle. I think there's 75% of the medical school systems do not require a single hour of nutrition education.
Nope.
I mean, it's just mind-boggling, right? Because there's so much data and studies and information out there of just how impactful food is, right? How it can truly drive outcomes. Food truly is medicine. People, couple years ago might have thought that it's woo-woo, but people are waking up to that, right? It truly is medicine. You got to remove the ultra processed junk, right? You have to eliminate some sugars, right? And I think that's, it was a big, step in the right direction with what the HHS just came out with the food pyramid and FDA of, flipping the pyramid, prioritizing protein, putting carbs down at the bottom, trying to eliminate sugar, eliminate alcohol as much as possible instead of giving, guidelines of here's how much you should have. I think we're taking steps there, but there is so much money and power behind a lot of the systems that are, pulling the strings in the background that it's going to take time, right? It's going to take voices like us, speaking up to truly help educate the population on truly what's going on. To your point, insurance premiums go up every single year. They're covering less also every single year. Yet, they're not reimbursing more every year. And if anything, they're reimbursing less. So they're certainly not there. You could talk about the whole PBMs, the pharmacy benefit managers, on that truly driving, some of the largest profits for the big insurance companies. But it has to start with the cultural shift, right? It has to start with the people demanding better, uh, you know, better, us holding the people accountable that need to be held accountable to helping us drive where ultimately we need to go with healthcare.
Yes. Yes, for sure. Insurance, and the FDA and all these things are holding us back because the gold standard in healthcare has always been, well, it's not FDA approved, so it can't be good. It can't be right. Well, high fructose corn syrup is FDA approved. Canola oil is FDA approved. Red dye 40 is FDA approved. Blue, yellow dyes, they're all FDA approved. If we go with what's FDA approved, you may or may not die. So it's not the best guideline for us. So this bureaucracy is an illusion in medicine where they are the authority in healthcare because they've built it that way. The institutions, the medical schools, the prestige in being an MD has put them at the top, but the entire curriculum is corrupt from the ground up. So everything that they're taught is all that. So I get that all the time. They're like, hey, what's the DC program versus the MD program? Like, it's everything with the MD program, except instead of all that pharmaceutical classes that they take, we take radiology and nutrition. So I can read an MRI and an X-ray and diagnose better than an MD on that stuff. And I can also tell you how to eat. And that's been chiropractic for 150 years. So that's from the DC perspective. But what about the naturopaths and the functional medicine doctors and the nurse practitioners and the MDs that are moving into functional medicine and lifestyle medicine? It's because they see it and they're like, no, this is truly what people do need. But the system works against them because there's no insurance coverage for it. There's no advanced testing coverage for it. And there's no follow through for it. No one's going to give you a stipend to go to your supermarket and buy healthy food either. So there's no coverage for any of this, but you can get food stamps for soda. So that's, I mean, it's an inverted table. So let's go into the food pyramid. That's a great example of what, and it was funny, even with that medical doctor that we talked to at the very end, she's like, oh, don't get me started about the inverted table. I'm like, we'll end the podcast before we both get in trouble here. She's like, I'm a vegetarian. And I'm like, great. I mean, but that's not the point. The prioritizing protein is still important as a vegetarian. But let's talk about that. So we flipped this thing. And now we've removed, if you remember the old one, there was like cereal at the top and milk and bread, right? Those, remember, I remember it from a kid. We had a similar one in Canada too. And they inverted it. So now you got the meat, you got a chicken up there. And I'm watching on Instagram all the people that hate this. They're like, they got fried chicken and red meat, which is a carcinogen. I'm like, no, they got protein at the top to prioritize protein. And they don't even have cereal on there. At the very bottom, they have grain. Whole grain, which means protein first and carbs and sugar at the bottom. But what is your perspective on that? What does it truly mean by inverting this table? What are we hinting at here?
Yeah, I mean, I think, right, there's always room for improvement. You know, there's always going to be two sides, someone who likes it, someone who doesn't.
Of course.
You know, obviously the people who like it are more on the forefront of the functional medicine side, right? But I think the big focus here is, you know, it's telling us to put more emphasis and focus on whole foods, nutrient dense foods, right? The guidelines are stressing to eat real, minimally processed foods, you know, reducing the added sugars, you know, which I'm sure that isn't a surprise to people, you know, when they're saying to remove sugars, right? Sugar is addictive. Sugar is poison, you know, the added sugars, right? You know, there's difference from the sugars that you get from foods, but, you know, still having too much sugar from, you know, what you're getting from natural, you know, in the foods can be a problem, right?
Yeah,
but
don't eat 14 pineapples a day. I mean, that's too much sugar.
Exactly.
Yeah,
you know,
correct.
but people also need to understand, you know, to stop necessarily looking at the images, like you said, right? We're just saying higher protein guidelines, prioritizing protein at every meal, right? Protein is essential for muscle mass, for strength, you know, to help with satiety so you don't overeat. It's helping recovery and metabolism, you know, especially as adults are getting older, or, you know, people who are super active. You need the protein to have the fuel to get through, to build, you know, repair and build up muscle, where, you know, there's more and more studies every single day that just shows that the number one organ for longevity is your muscle, right? And what's the best way to fuel your muscle? Well, higher protein, right? And so I think, you know, we have to take that as the consideration, not necessarily the images that are put up there, but it's to, you know, prioritize protein. Um, I love that, you know, they've removed some, you know, things like the cereal, right? But again, it's taking away some of the stigmas. The guidelines keep these long-standing recommendations to limit the sugars, right? The sodium, the excess saturated fat. This framework still, you know, discourages the ultra-processed foods and the sugary drinks. So, you know, we have to. I think at the end of the day, to kind of like really make it easy and summarize it for people, it's really just eat real food, right? Eliminate as much junk as possible. You know, that's really what it comes down to. Try to, uh, you know, focus on what is truly going to fuel your body, and I think that's really what it's saying. Um, you know, we're talking about these bureaucracies. You know, to kind of go back to that. You know, there's no secret about this. People can look it up, but when the cigarette industry was going down, right? Some of those largest cigarette industries companies bought some of the largest food companies, right? And they did that because they saw that, you know, cigarettes were going to be going out, because now all of a sudden, you know, there's studies showing that it causes cancer, and they can no longer pay off doctors to say that it's healthy for you. You know, they went into the food industry and they just replicated that model, right? Created these highly addictive, highly appealing uh, foods, the same thing that they did with cigarettes, right? You know, to create a product that was going to make you addictive, that wasn't going to be as satiating, so that you'd eat more of it, buy more of it. But ultimately, they weren't looking at the food of what can we do to this food to make it healthier, right? To help people have more energy, to help people have a more sustainable quality life. No, they're looking on how can I make as much money as possible, right? How can I get people coming back and buying more of this, regardless of what I have to do to it? What do I have to add to it? Let's just build the cheapest food that we can make, and someone who will just continuously buy it no matter what happens to their health. They weren't thinking about the health outcomes when it came to that. They were thinking about what was going to drive the most business and profits.
Correct. Yeah. Great job. That is what is going on. And the shifts are there. And you use the cigarette industry. They moved into, vaping. Now we have a vaping epidemic. They're always having to pivot to cover their butts when they start sinking. And we're seeing this now with the GLP-1s, and the food industry, the fast food industry is already ahead of the curve. They're like, well, hang on a second. And in order to get these things passed, the food industry is part of the panels of the pharmaceutical companies. So they have chairmen that sit on the boards on the pharmaceutical companies, allowing certain things to pass or not pass. There's been a few advanced GLP-1s that are on the hang up of being passed because the food industry is really concerned that completely taking away people's appetite and cravings is going to shut down the fast food industry. Long term, they're thinking ahead, and they're stalling these products from even going, even though these products are not the best thing to take anyways. We've seen all the Ozempic side effects and all that too. So it's just funny that none of this has anything to do with the patient, with the person. The drug's bad for them, the food's bad for them, and they're fighting on which one to inject and put into your mouth on both ends. So it's never been there. And I love the cigarette analogies because they were there, and my parents' generation was told it's okay to smoke. It may actually be healthy for you. It may actually clear up your sinuses, and stupid things like that. And how the next generation, my generation, was like, no more. It makes no sense. And that's what we're seeing. So I'm excited for my kids and your kids to be learning the new food pyramid in school. So when they're 40 years old, they remember that images in their head of the protein at the top and the grain at the bottom. I think it's going to be beneficial for everyone on that as well. Where do you see proper healthcare going on from here? What is your typical experience in your protocols that you do? No specific conditions, because we'll be here all day, but the protocol of truly getting to the root cause of people's function is what we're doing, not health or illness. We're not even searching for that. What we're searching for is function. And you can do tons of different things and tests and blood work and all that to do that. What is the system that we put our patients through to properly assess and then follow up and follow through with to get them back to an optimal range of health?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the annual physical needs to be thrown out the window, right? You have to find a provider, a functional medicine provider, or someone who's willing to run more advanced panels to more consistency. Like what we do is we recommend that an advanced panel be ran every 4 months, right? Because you can't really make a lot of decisions without the data, right? You don't know what's going on. You don't know if you're starting to have a deficiency. You don't know if there's any imbalance if you're not testing for it. You can't know without having that. You can't make decisions. You can't have the answer without truly understanding what's going on and having the data in front of you to make decisions. That's why I think all these wearables and data tracking mechanisms that are coming out, I think are great, right? Because I think the more data that we can have, I think it can be overwhelming for just the average person who's not dealing with it every single day. But I think it really comes down to obviously, we could talk about the foundational pillars, that where health truly starts, right? Your diet, your sleep, your movement, your stress management, and your community. Obviously those are foundational pillars that just need to be considered as non-negotiables, right? You need an optimal diet, which we just talked about with the food pyramid. Whole food, nutrient dense, as clean as possible. Eliminate junk, eliminate sugar. If you can go without alcohol, great. I think alcohol is the next cigarette industry. Gen Z has already truly dropped and eliminated alcohol. And I'm not telling people that you can't have it. I personally don't drink alcohol, but that was a personal decision that I had to make. Um, and I feel great, right?
Yeah.
But that
Yeah.
not saying that people have to go do that, but people have to understand how important sleep is. That
Mhm.
it's sleep it's so foundational, and people talk about oh well, it's only a matter of time, right? Your body catches up, right? There's enough studies and science that shows you need 7 to 9 hours, right? You have to get your sleep, and you have to dial in that routine, or else it will catch up with you, right? It will flip your hormones. It'll cause you to overeat and snack, and it's going to drain and just mess up your cortisol level. There's so much to sleep that people don't understand or think that they could just get away with, especially people my age, a little bit younger, that think that they can get by with it. But it's only a matter of time where it catches up with you, right? We talked about muscle, right? Just how important movement is. We live in such a sedentary lifestyle, where people forget, what it means to move. And I think that can be connected with, we've lost, sense of purpose or sense of community, where and having those gatherings, because it's like right now, right? It's just so easy for us to hop on a Teams meeting, or to you know meet over on our desk, where we're not going out, we're not getting up, we're not walking, connecting.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that there's those things, but I think truly what's going to um, turn things around, uh, is changing the mindset of this annual physical to doing more consistent lab work that is much more expansive than what we're used to, right? We're not just going to run a CBC and CMP. We need to, look at your hormones. We need to look at your thyroid. Need to continuously look at the metabolic panels and lipid panels, nutrient deficiencies, to just constantly keep you in that optimal state, right? If your body isn't, and when I say optimal state, I'm not saying the reference ranges that are on LabCorp or Quest,
No.
right? Because those are ranges based off of a sick population,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
95, 97% of the US is metabolically unhealthy.
Yeah.
And we're saying that LabCorp and Quest reference ranges are based off of that population, right? So it's not looking at those, it's looking at what optimal ranges are, which, like what you're looking, like what you practice at your clinics, and what we practice at our clinics, right? There's a difference than normal and optimal, right? So yeah,
Yes.
when you go to your
Yep.
doctor, and they say, "Oh yeah, your labs look normal, right? Everything's okay. Your pain's okay. Your fatigue's okay. You're just getting older. This is normal." No, it's not, right? Something is wrong. Your body is the most um, uh, impressive, magnificent creation ever created, right? And it tells you and gives you signals when something's going up. If you have fatigue, if you have brain fog, if you're having a hard time getting weight off or putting muscle on, those are all signs that something is going on, right? Yes, you are aging, but that doesn't mean that you have to accept normal as a part of aging, right? We can do things today. We have the tools to constantly keep you in that optimal state, which is ultimately going to give you more energy. It's going to give you that mental clarity. It's going to allow you to have that motivation to get up and go to the gym, even when it might be easier staying in bed, right? It's going to help you, uh, you know, do what live that healthier, longer life that we're all, searching after. We're talking about longevity, anti-aging, right? We have tools today, and enough information backed by data, backed by science, that says if we can keep you in these optimal states, in these optimal ranges, you in fact will reduce the risk of all cause mortality. You will in fact reduce the risk of these chronic diseases that are plaguing the nation, right? But you can only do that if you have the information and the data in front of you, and someone who has experience and has the knowledge on how to act on those things.
Yes. Yeah. Your provider is all about you. If you want a certain result, you hire the right people. You delegate to the right people. And medicine is the study of pathology. We're not sitting here, Zach and I, knocking medicine. They are the best pathologists on the face of the planet. And everything is based around those numbers. So when you see your vitamin D panel come back and it says the normal range is between 30 and 100, having a vitamin D range at 30 is not good. From Zach's and I perspective, optimal is 70. That's where we want you to be, between 60 and 90. So 70 is optimal. So very different, looking at the exact same vitamin D panel that comes back from a medical perspective and a vitality perspective is two different things. One's pathological viewpoint, the other one is vitality viewpoint. And I want you just to take that and run with it from this podcast. Is like, oh, who do I want on my team? We're playing football. Well, I don't want Wayne Gretzky on my team. I want Tom Brady on my team, or Sidney Crosby. I'm too old. I don't want Sidney Crosby on my team. I want Tom Brady on my team, because we're playing football. We're talking about my health here, right? Yep. So those are the people you want to put around in your corner when it comes to healthcare. And that's what I think Zach and I are just passionate about moving forward with this is your annual physical is really important. But going to your MD and knowing that your red blood cells and your white blood cells and your cholesterol is okay doesn't give us the full picture of how you're optimally functioning.
Yeah.
So that's it. And I love your thing about every 4 months getting that done. I would recommend that as well. We say every 6 months to do that if you're under 40, and more if you're over 40. To do
I mean, we fall within that range too. Every 4 to 6 months. Part of our programs or memberships, we include it every 4 months. Not to say that everyone does it every 4 months, but yeah, I mean, just think about how much can change within in 6 to 12 months, right?
Stress. I mean, imagine the stress you go through a season, just winter. Let's just talk about the holidays, or a change in life, or a loss in your job, or whatever it is. That stress is immediate within that first week when you get the layoff papers, and then now the next 3 months is probably chaos for your mental state. What's your blood work going to look like a month after all that? It's going to be a mess. And that's why you want to get checked every 6 months. And if you rely on your job and you rely on your premiums and your healthcare premiums, they're never going to take care of you. They're really never going to take care of you. You have to put this into your own hands. And I think what people are doing, they're like, you know what, screw the system. I'm going to get a catastrophic policy that you can do through AFLAC or whatever, just in case you end up in a hospital, you have something so you don't stress out more and actually have another heart attack and die in the hospital because you're freaked out about the bill. At least that's covered. And then all that extra premium that you're saving, either off your paycheck or this, is more than enough to do your $190 blood work twice a year. Pretty simple stuff. Or if you're doing hormone panels or whatever. Anyways, I think we're both beating the same drum.
Yeah. No, I mean, one of the things that we preach a lot about to our clients, and what I talk to clients about, or just people who when they ask what I do, is you don't rely on your car insurance, right? You can't rely on your car insurance to do your routine maintenance, right? To do the oil change, to rotate your tires, right? That's you're doing that to make sure that you have the best longevity of your car, right? Insurance is there for an emergency, right? It is there for an accident. It is there for, you getting hit or rear-ended, whatever it might be. But it's not there to help your car live as long as possible, right? The difference between, cars and us is that you can buy a new car, right? You can't buy a new body, right? You can't start, systems over once they become too, damaged, right? You have to start thinking of your health insurance the same way, right? It is not there. It's there for an emergency, to your point, right? It's there if you do have that heart attack, or you do have, some sort of surgery that's needed, a broken bone, whatever it is. But people really have to start becoming CEOs of their own health, right? They have to stop outsourcing the responsibility. And I love the analogy that you said about football, because my background is football, and you have to start assembling your team, right? You have to start recruiting on who is going to give you the best chances to win, right? You got to consider doctors as advisors, right? They're not saviors. You have to find the best nutritionist, the right trainer, the right DC, to really start assembling, your Avengers team, right? We provide the expertise and roadmap, but at the end of the day, the ownership has to come from you, the individual, right? No one cares about your health more than you do, right? So you have to take that into your own hands. You have to take that responsibility, because no one else is going to come and do it for you, right? No one's going to pick up the dumbbell for you. No one's going to, tell you to stop eating that donut unless you have a really, really good friend, right? Or a spouse that's going to hold you accountable. At the end of the day, it has to be you. You have to make that decision. And when you start doing those little things and building those habits, it's really where you start seeing things turn around.
Yeah, agreed. That's awesome, man. I think this was great. Thanks for doing it. Leaves a lot of food for thought for the listeners. Check out Nava Health if you need some more answers or in-depth questions with some things there as another resource for you. And thanks for being here, man. I appreciate everything and all the best in 2026.
No, thanks for having me, and you as well.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for tuning into this episode of Living a Full Life podcast. If you're enjoying the show, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. That helps others find the show, and we greatly appreciate it. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next episode.